The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hi, it's Christine Joanna Hart, and welcome to Valkyries at Revolution Radio. That's the new name of the show, just trying it out for style, trying out a new microphone, so I hope everything is cool. Sadly, we haven't got a guest today, and I was going to do a reading. I just took my son outdoor swimming in an outdoor pool. It was actually pouring with rain and a thunderstorm as we were swimming, but it's kind of like it's not hot, but it's very close over here, so it was okay to swim in the rain. But I brought the book that I was going to read out along with me, and sadly I must have taken it out of the bag. Oh, I'm trying to think where it is. I know where it is. I put it in a bag with some other stuff, and sadly, it's still there. It's in the back of the car, so I can't read it out, which is really, really annoying, because I was going to start the show with it this morning. I was going to share about shamanism and the reptilians, because we had somebody on last week who was a reptilian hybrid, and a friend of mine, Tajinda, posted it on different sites, and there was a little bit of an argument between, are reptilians bad or are they good? And a few people were like, oh, they're really bad, and a few people were like, oh, there's some good ones. So I wanted just to talk about that tonight, and I wanted to talk about what we do to fight back in the war that we're in at the moment, and the ascension. So I'll just start off by going over the book I wanted to quote from, which was The Shaman's Way by Michael Harner, and it was the introduction where he took ayahuasca, same draft as David Icke took when he traveled in the same area. Firstly, I want to just say the show is dedicated to a friend of Eve Lorgan, who she introduced to me, an American called Rich Wade. That's Richard Wade, Rich for short. To thank him and dedicate the show to him, because he's been very generous with donations to the show and to me personally. I'm struggling at the moment, and I'm waiting for the sale of my mother's house to go through. I'll get my brother and I get only a small amount from there, but it will be enough to help me out of a bit of a hole. But that's taking its time. Sadly, I've because of the phone hacking and what's gone on, I'm finding myself struggling at the moment. But I'm sure the mist will clear, and I'll find my way through it, because I love working, and I'm sure there will be something, some way forward. So I just wanted to thank Richard, who also is a very warm human being, and gave me a lot of warmth. And he was telling me a story about how he stopped giving to charity, and he started to just donate to people he sees who he feels might need help, and how he saw someone struggling with some shopping one day, coming home from the shops, and found out they had diabetes, and he started to give this guy lifts, and they became friends. And I got one of Richard's donations when I was feeling really bad, and his letter as well really lifted me, and it made me think what I would like to do when I get back in employment. I hope will be very soon, whether it's investigations or journalism or something else, that I would like to give some of the money I earn to helping individuals. And when I do that, I would like to also give them warmth, because when you are in a bad position and you're feeling really, really bad, it can feel a little bit dark and icy. And if someone comes forward and sort of warms that, it can crack the ice and you can have a good cry. And then it really lessens the pain that can build up. So that was what Richard did for me this week. And I'd just like to dedicate the show to him and give a big thank you to Richard for his warmth. And he's inspired me to become the same kind of person as he is. So I hope I find my footing on that pathway. So back to Michael Harner, the Shaman's Way. I started to read that book, and it was he took ayahuasca, and he took it with an Indian tribe, and he was supposed to take it with a friend, but then this friend decided that they didn't want to take it. He drank it first, and his friend said, well, I'm not going to take it. And he went then with the Native American Indians and laid down in one of their teepees and looked at the sky, and it started to overcome him, and his whole body started to feel like concrete, his legs and his body and his chest, and except for his heart. And he started to talk to his heart to try and keep it going. And then he realized that he was dying. So he called out to the native Indians to help him. He said, it's having a bad effect. Please help me. So they were trying to get an antidote for it. And they gave him the antidote, but he still slipped into hallucinations. And one of the hallucinations, well, the main one, I think was the only one, was he saw a great big serpent dragon falling from the sky, and just it landed just above the earth, and then little black specks came off it, and they were like bat-like creatures, bat-like reptilian creatures, and they took over the earth and took over humanity, and he could see them, and they were absolutely terrifying. And when he came out of the this was a long time ago, I think it was in the 60s, when he came out of the ayahuasca, the effect, the trance, he was horrified by what he had seen, and horrified by the reptilians, which had like bat-like wings. And he went to one of the braves, who was a shaman, and he said to him, I'm really scared of the reptilian creatures. And this witch doctor said, oh, them, they only think they're masters of the universe. They're not. Seemingly, one of them has said to him, we're masters of the universe, you're our slaves. And this guy said they're not masters of the universe, they just think they are. And Michael Harner was very moved by that, and he was moved to become a shamanistic journeyer to try and find a way to fight back against them. So it made me think of my own experience that when I traveled in the astral and traveled up through the layers that you can go into, the astral mental body and the causal body, when I traveled past the different realms and saw the vision of a god fighting the serpent. Although it was transmitted to me mentally that the god was Odin or Woden, I think that was probably my own bloodline, which is Aryan, and the Nordic way of interpreting our creator. It was definitely the creator source god, and he was fighting a serpent. And I have been looking into it, and it's what's known as end times in the Norse tradition. It's a vision of end times that they call Ragnarok, where the creator, what they call the All-Father, fights the serpent, which in biblical tradition is called the Nakash. And the Nakash, as Michael Heiser told me when I interviewed him on the radio, it's parts that have been taken out of the Bible, I think, the Hebrew text. There's quite a few missing parts. The Nakash Baram is the god that rebelled against the creator god, and he was the one who is basically God of this world. And basically the bits that when I saw my vision of the creator fighting the Nakash, which has this serpent-like, for some reason, has a serpent-like shape. It's like a long serpent that coils itself around the earth with a dragon-like head and breathes fire. And I'm sure it can shapeshift into whatever the hell it likes. It's a god, but this is the shape it seems to enjoy taking. And he was fighting it, and bits were coming off its body and the bits were landing down on the earth. And this is the same vision as Michael Harner saw as the bits. The bits are coming out of his body, and the bits are its angelic hosts that this god seems to have. And these are the reptilians. And basically, you know, they were here before us, and they did seem to hybridize some of us. We have a reptilian part of our minds. And basically, it seems some of our bloodline have been really in league with them, and the rest have been fighting them, and more are in the same bloodline as the creator. And these two different parts, one infected by the Nakash and the reptilian form, and the one not infected, seem to have been warring against each other. And the battle seems to have been raging not only on Earth, but through the different systems, through the astral, the mental, and I believe up to the second heaven. And this battle has been going on for quite some time. And they do say that we have some part of us that has agreed to awaken at a certain time, and this time has come right now. This is the time. This is not only end times, but it's time that this part of our brain has agreed for us all to have a mass awakening. And this mass awakening is called the ascension, where also the consciousness is rising as well. So it's joining up, and the demonic realm, the reptilian realm, the realm of the Nakash, that can't really get down here with us. It's had to come through a certain bloodline of human that hosts it, that it now can descend here. It now can become visible to us. It can, there is a realm of angelic that is part of the Nakash called the Brotherhood of the Brotherhood of the Black Flame. And the Brotherhood of the Black Flame are the ones that are descending to be among us at this time, and we are going to be able to feel them, and some people will be able to see them. So that is going to go on now. I don't know if they're going to have a fake, we are aliens and some kind of alien landing, but this will definitely be the Brotherhood of the Black Flame that are descending, that are here, but they are not benevolent. They do not like us. We are food to them. They do eat our flesh mostly. They prefer our young, and they are our sworn enemy. They do want to wipe us off the face of the earth. Some people seem to think that because I had a woman on the show last week who was like hybrid herself, that I somehow thought that that was okay. No, no, I don't think it's okay. What I think she should do, obviously there's a link. Obviously, okay, the Nakash is the god who went against the creator. So he is a personification of evil, what we know as Satan or Lucifer, but they've kind of twisted it that it's an angel. But if you go back to Hebrew text, it's not an angel, it is a lesser god, and there are lesser gods. The lesser gods are sent out to rule over us, and there are lesser gods. We're not supposed to worship them, but we can talk to them, we can ask them for guidance. But one of the dark lesser gods is the Nakash, and he is what we know as the devil. So basically, the reptilians are part of his body, are his angelic hosts. So they like to seed into us. They like to steal eggs from the female. They like to experiment with us, and they like to, if somebody is psychic, they like to infuse them, and they can enjoy doing that because then they can enjoy our lives, and also they can use some of us to be messengers to say that they're okay, but they're not okay. The best thing I say that they can do, if people that are in that particular position, is to pray and to align yourself with somebody that came here to heal, which is Jesus Christ. They can do that because you can read the Gospels and read how to live and how to align yourself with Christ, or the Christ consciousness, which has come in others that have lived in that very special way, such as Buddha and all the other masters. Odin is my personal favorite. I'm not sure whether Odin is the All-Father, but I do have connection. That is how I feel the creator, and I have a tight connection in there. The best way is to do that, and to try and connect up with that love and that love energy. There was somebody I noticed was saying today about I don't know who it was. I can't remember their name, but I did respond to them. They didn't reply back. I always find that quite irritating because it's like it's passive aggression in some kind of way. It's like you've replied, you've been good enough to reply, and they're just going to ignore you. But never mind. And they were like, "Oh, you want to speak to Colonel Aquino, and you want to interview this evil person and that evil person." Actually, my interviews with evil people, my meetings with such as Ian Brady, Kenneth Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler, and the Real IRA commanders responsible for the Omel bomb, and Colonel Aquino, was all about my own struggle to get free from my own programming. I knew there was something wrong with me. I'd been adopted, and I was pretty angry. I was told I was evil. And so I tried to find the key in other people that had been called evil. And I tried to find out what was wrong with them and what the evil actually was, so I could try and find out what it was that was wrong with me. I knew I wasn't functioning properly. I didn't really feel that happy. I knew there was something wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And I would go to therapists and say, "I think there's something wrong," and they would be like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine." And I'm like, "Well, I think there's something wrong," because I felt like a Ferrari, but I was living like a Mini Cooper. And I wondered why I wasn't fully functioning, even though I felt like a Ferrari and I wasn't living like one. So I couldn't work that out. But if you go and sit in front of a therapist and say something like that, they don't really get you, because they're like, "Well, maybe you should face the fact you were a Mini Cooper." But it was this incongruity to what I actually knew about myself, to the life I was living and my achievements, that I thought I knew there was something had gone on with me, but I didn't know what it was. And I thought if I wrote books about my life, I ended up writing two, that it was always my fantasy that someone would come along and read it and say, "Oh, I know what's wrong with you. It's this." And they would point it out, and I would be just suddenly healed, and this heavy overcoat that wasn't mine would be taken off, and I would suddenly be free and live a life of fulfillment and happiness. And bizarrely, after it didn't happen with my first book, Searching for Daddy, not at all. And I felt I didn't feel happy after it was published, and I just thought maybe its writing isn't for me. But then I did meet Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler, and we did have an interesting interchange. He had different alter personalities, and one of them had done his murder of 13 girls. And I saw him on a television program, and I saw him talking about the murders and looking at pictures of these 13 girls. And he said, I did that one, Angelo did that one, he did that one, I did that one, he did that one. And he was saying in a high pitched sing-song voice that rang a bell in some kind of way with me. And I know why it rang a bell with me, because it was the voice of a boy, and it's quite incongruent with how he looked. And then there was a flash in on this program of him in court, and he again was different. He was quite a very average, kind of very boring individual. He was pleading his innocence, and he was quite hard to watch for someone like me, because I was fascinated by the other side that had done the murders, and I was trying to work out why he had done it and understand evil, because there was this key, I felt, to unlocking my own feeling of being locked up, because that was the clue I had to my own condition, because my mother had called me evil most of my life, and my the relatives of my father had, basically it was this thing that I was innately evil, being adopted, being a bastard, made me innately evil, and evil at my core. So I thought, well, if I find out what evil is, then I can unlock that, whatever's wrong with me, like take off that jam jar and let out the spider, and let out the bee, and be free inside, and live. I thought maybe that would help me. So it wasn't just as sometimes, I know I've got a personal stalker who likes to say, oh, you must have been turned on by Bianchi, and that's where you see it. And really my belowers are very numbed out. They're just not active. I don't actually have a sexuality. And so it's nothing to do with that whatsoever. It was a massive curiosity and a massive need to find a key to myself, not really even an interest in them per se. And so I actually thought that of myself. I thought maybe, I should be interested in evil. And I thought, well, I won't study that. But it reoccurred in my head. And so I sent a letter to Bianchi, and a friend of mine said that I wouldn't get a reply, but I actually got a reply within days. And I started a correspondence with him, and I didn't think that I would be able to visit him. I didn't even think of it, because it was in the far side of America, Washington State, and it's so far away. It's on the borders of Canada, and it's just like insanely far away. And at that point, I had spoken to a chap called Chris Berry D. There was a girl on a site. On a site, gosh, I can't remember the name of it, Silly Old Man or something like that, my friend Hugh Burnett had told me about. And there was a girl on there called Jackie. I tried to track her down since then, and Jackie knew a lot about true crime. She's pretty good and knowledgeable about true crime. So we got talking, and she said, oh, you should write to Bianchi. Here he is, he's here. And so on her advice, actually, I did then decide to, that was it, I forgot that bit. And so Hugh Burnett, rather annoyingly, when I said I was getting on with this girl, Jackie, then annoyingly used a fake name and came into that relationship and kind of wrecked it for me. I don't know, is that out of jealousy, or I think it was actually. He was quite possessive, and maybe he proceeded to abuse everyone on there without telling me. without telling me who he was. And then when he'd finally managed to get everyone arguing with everyone, he then confessed to me that he was this character on there. That was kind of horrible. But it was too late because I'd already written to Bianchi, and then he and I had been writing. And this girl, Jackie, had told me about Chris Berry D, a writer, and she said he had met Bianchi. So I emailed Chris Berry D, and Chris Berry D, I gave him my number, said I was a journalist and I was interested in Bianchi. So he rang me, or did I ring him? I think he emailed me his number and said, ring me. And I rang him, and we spent about 2 hours on the phone talking about Bianchi. And I quite got on with Chris Berry D. And he had more or less blackmailed Bianchi into seeing him. He'd written to him for about 5 years and had tried to study the murder of these 13 girls that he'd killed with Angelo Bono. Basically, they terrorized Los Angeles, and the two of them, there's quite a few films on the Hillside Strangler, and one of them, Billy Zane, plays Bianchi. And I suppose that's the best one. It's awful. It's an awful film to watch. It's really quite brutal because they picked up very beautiful girls, and Bianchi was only 25, and Bono, his cousin, was 45, and basically went out cruising, picked up beautiful girls off the street, and took them back to Bono's house and just murdered them in pretty horrific ways. Actually, it was really hard for me to watch the movie when they got the girl. It's really hard to. It's really hard. It was a hard film to watch, and gosh, what they went through must have been awful. And basically, when they got caught, they Bianchi said that it was Bono who had led him, and because Bianchi was a boy, more or less, and quite, I said, quite charming, and he had this altar that was quite sort of give an aura of pure innocence, that he managed to blame most of it on Bono, but he got away with the death penalty, and they both ended up doing prison time. And Chris Berry D had written to him for 5 years, and he said to me that he believed that Bianchi was the dominant one, the one that had led Angelo Bono, into it. And so I asked him about the altars, and he said he didn't think he had an altar. So when I got this letter back from what happened, Chris Berry D then more or less blackmailed Bianchi that he would be allowed to meet him. He had lots of Bianchi's property that he had sent him to help with his book. He hoped that he would help him get out of prison. And Chris Berry D then when he eventually let Bianchi knew that he hated his guts, Bianchi then said, I want my stuff back. And Chris Berry D said, okay, if you let me meet you. So he flew all the way out to Washington, and basically Bianchi stood up in the visiting room it wasn't a visiting room, it was a kind of a little place where he went to get his stuff back. And he said, give me my stuff. And Bianchi got the stuff back, and he said, I don't want to talk to you. And he said, you come near me again, I'll kill you, and then walked out the room. So he basically only had like 2 minutes with him. And when I got the letter from Bianchi, Chris Berry D was quite shocked. And then I got another letter, and I got this visiting order to say, come and see me. And when I told Chris Berry D, he was quite shocked, because he said, how did you get that? That's really unusual. But I think probably I have something in me that can access men that have been in the Monarch programs. I think I must have, because I don't know how I did it, but I did get that. And it is unusual. I don't know how I managed to do it, but he wasn't easy. He wasn't easy to talk to. From then on in, I had a really strong drive to find out why he did it. And he was a very difficult man to get close to. It took me gosh, it took me so long. And I would write and then get something back. Oh, no, sorry, I don't want to deal with you. And then I would say to him, you know, I want to speak to you about this. No, I don't want to. And it was really difficult. It was massive amounts of hard work and massive amounts of sitting at the computer and trying to sort of break into him somehow. And eventually I did go to see him, and it was quite odd because it was a long flight, and I eventually supposedly had 8 hours with him on the first day and 8 hours of the second day, and he wouldn't show me the part that I wanted to see, and I couldn't reach that particular part, and I had written to someone called Dr. Ralph Allison, who was his psychiatrist, and he had sent me all his medical records in a file, which is quite unusual because they're private, but they were fascinating records. And the part called Steve that Chris Berry said was a fake. I didn't think he was a fake because I could tell through watching him, and he's on YouTube. There's quite a good program about Bianchi on YouTube, but interestingly, when he talks as Steve, you can tell that it's someone else. There is a part where he turns around to the camera and says, you're the one who's trying to make me leave him. And I think that is Bianchi putting on Steve. I think he got to a certain point where he wanted to illustrate that he did have different parts, and he started to act the different parts and kind of as a way of explaining what had happened when he had committed the murders. But so then it confused matters to the point that people, when people investigate him, they tend to think that the Steve part was put on. But reading the interviews that Ralph Allison did with him, and Ralph Allison thought that this part was genuine. When you read the scripts, the part Steve is, oh gosh, you can hear it raining. It's really rained here quite a lot. I think we had a month's rain in overnight, and we're having really bad storms and really bad flooding. Oh well. Interestingly, the stuff that Ralph Allison had, I read it, and when Steve spoke to him, you could tell that it was a disembodied spirit, and this disembodied spirit was fascinating. I can't work out why particularly was so interesting, but it did interest me. And he was basically saying, I don't like girls, I want to kill that, see you next Tuesday. I can kill that, see you next Tuesday, and the blonde, see you next Tuesday, and the brunette, see you. And it was quite interesting, and I couldn't put my finger on what I found fascinating about it. So I asked Bianchi again and again about Steve, and he kept saying to me, Steve doesn't exist. And I kept hearing from Ken, which was quite frustrating, quite boring, I have to say, because, you know, it was a little bit like having a conversation with anybody. And if you're trying to get to that certain part of somebody, you're like, well, I don't want to talk to that part. I want to talk to the murdering part. And I had the same problem with Ian Brady. Ian Brady was like talking to a shopkeeper or a greengrocer. He was incredibly boring. And you're like, hang on, I don't want to talk to that boring everyday part of you talking about what you and Myra Hindley did. I want to talk to the murderous part and find out what's going on with it. So I had the same problem with Brady, the same problem with Bianchi, that they tend to they tend to not show that part. They tend to I think it's that they know that people are after it, and I think they don't want to show it because I think they think, oh, it's all they've got, and if they show it, then the other person will perhaps go away and they won't get the attention that they want, and they know that they're only getting attention because the other person wants to see that part, and they won't sort of peacock up and show that part because they think, well, no, I'm not gonna. You can hang around and I know what you want, but I'm not going to show it to you. Or perhaps they're ashamed of that part. I'm not really sure. Perhaps they haven't got control over it, is the bottom line. So I hadn't managed to see Ian Brady's part, the killing part. And he actually told me that part is locked up in a black box. So I would say that his killing altar is also in the black box. So basically, he should be put in a room and broken down. So the other front parts and all his other parts should be broken down until you can get to that part in the black box, which is quite easy to do. You could maybe get him in a room and put his victims on a film in front of him and put probably something like the bodies or pictures would probably do, or oh look, this is what you've done, and trigger that part and keep him in that room without food or water, and just show him that again until you broke down the other parts and you got to that part. And then when you got to that part, you could wrench it out of the black box and see it. But nobody wants to do that. I don't understand why that isn't done, because we, as a human race, need to know what has gone on, but we don't do that. God knows why not. You know, there are plenty of people plenty of nurses willing to treat these people like shit, you know, when they're in their care. Why not do it properly? And I'm sure after a couple of months of that treatment, you could get what you needed, and then, you know, give them a bloody ice cream or something, and, you know, there you'll be fine. But you've got then what you need, what you want. And it's left to investigators that are curious. Some of them do it for reasons that they just don't like those people and they want to expose them as shits. Some people, Chris Berry D does, like Chris Berry D, we've had our arguments in the past, but I know that he does want to get to the evil and find out. He said, I want to get to it and put it on a Petri dish and find out exactly, you know, break it down. So I said, I know what you mean. That's my complete obsession. And so with Bianchi, I was trying to get to Steve. There was no point talking to Ken because Ken hadn't killed anybody, and Ken basically was telling me what he was doing in the prison and what he was eating. And when you've worked really, really hard to get to the Steve part, and you think, yes, I'm going to get a letter and it's going to feel and see, and you don't get a letter the way you can feel and see, you get boring crap that you can get through talking to somebody at the bus stop, and then you think, okay, back to the drawing board, and you do another letter, that goes off, and you get something back, and it's nothing in it, and then you do it again, and then nothing, do it again, nothing, and years can go on. And I think it was how many years was it? I think I ended up knowing him for 3 years, but I did do the visit right at the start. So basically, I got a few letters. I knew I wasn't going to get to the Steve part, so I travelled out there. And when I first sat down with him, I felt quite afraid. I could feel a kind of really kind of reptilian kind of personality. Something not human coming at me, and I don't know what that was. Maybe it was just me. He did look exactly like he had in court, and was quite unnerving because I've been watching lots of videos of him, and in some of them he does look quite satanistic and quite, smiling, and you can just see the evil in him and his sort of glittering eyes. And to see him, everything he'd done to the girls came up in my head, and it was like sitting with Mengele or something. I felt that personality, whether that was the killer or not, I don't know actually. But I felt that, and it felt like being above water and seeing him and just being okay with him. And it felt like a crocodile was just coming at me and it was going to like devour me. And I felt a certain terror. I felt almost as if I was going to shit myself or pass out or both. And I thought, I'm going to get up and ask the gods, can I leave? Because I can't handle this. And I remember reading about someone else who met him, a journalist, who said that their pulse rate went up as soon as he walked in the room. And I can testify to that. It is what happens with him. And it didn't happen with Brady. You just get the feeling you're with just, a nutcase, really, a well-read nutcase. And people kept saying to me, you must have been scared, you must have been scared. No, not really. But with Bianchi, I just immediately, even though I'd met murderers before, so it shouldn't have felt bad, this feeling of complete terror, even though there were guards in the room. There were so many guards with guns and just armed to the teeth, that I wasn't in any physical danger at all. Not at all. There's no way he could have hurt me. And I didn't even think he was going to lunge at me. His arms were folded and, I was there. I wasn't scared of that at all. It was just when he looked at me, it was a real primal, just pure terror. I felt just go all the way through me. It was like cold water just pouring through every part of you, just permeating you. And it was really terrifying. And I thought, I'm going to ask one of the guards if I can leave. Actually, my mouth wouldn't talk. I couldn't move and my mouth wouldn't talk. I was kind of frozen. And actually, after speaking to, I know the shrink Reed Malloy, who's very famous, and we've spoken quite a lot about Bianchi, and he said it's a reptilian thing. Interestingly, that reptilian, again, I'm going to get back, loop round in a circle to my point about reptilians, mentioning these serial killers, but he said it's a reptilian thing where with the reptilian force, we are their food. And when something that is going to eat you fixes you with its stare, you feel that feeling of that you are its food. And it was rather like that. It was that feeling that went all through me. It was indescribable, actually, because I knew he wasn't going to touch me. It was a real primal, ancient feeling of creeping through every cell of my being. I felt the experience before when I was looked in. I did an interview at a zoo, Paradise Zoo, actually, and there was a lion, and I was allowed in with the lion, but there was barbed wire between us. But the lion was going crazy, and I was with the feeder, and the lion looked at me, and it started attacking the barbed wire, and I was just inches away, and I could tell it would devour me. It was the same feeling that I didn't think I'd be scared. I'm not scared of lions at all, because I like them. They're quite beautiful, but I could just tell it just wanted to eat me, and that was that same feeling of being food that I felt with Bianchi, which was horrible. And then he started speaking to me, and it kind of, his eyes seemed to change colour. They went from dark to pale blue. And then when I saw the pale blue back in them, I wasn't scared anymore. In fact, I looked at him and thought, oh, I'm not scared. Why was I scared just then? That was odd. And I relaxed, and I was quite pleased that I relaxed. And then throughout the hours that I spent with him, a child alter came out, and I knew he had got a child alter because I'd read in his medical notes about someone called Billy, and that seemed to be Billy, and we had a conversation. And the only time that I spent so long, literally I spent 2 years, I think, after that, trying to reach Steve to find out what was going on. But what I did have constantly were dreams about that Bianchi had a pet, and the pet was a giant bat-like creature with black feathered wings, and the feathered wings were like a vulture's wings, and they were big, bony, huge wings, like muscled wings, and the feathers were quite intricate, really detailed, lovely woven feathers. And I did see constantly visions of this winged creature, and its face was, it's hard to see because I kind of, when I saw it, it was, I can't see it. I still can't see it in my mind's eye. But he had this kind of creature as a kind of a pet. And I saw it constantly with him when in dreams and in the astral, it was constantly there. And what I think happens, just to loop back around to make sense with this reptilian thing, the lady I had on last week talking about hybrids with Draco reptilians, what he obviously had that I didn't know at the time because I hadn't written the book about him in For the Kill, was a pet Draco reptilian. And that had obviously come through him. He'd obviously let it come through him and feed off the girls. And he'd obviously found a way of hypnotizing Bono to rope him in. Bono was basically his lapdog. I would say he used sexual temptation to lure in Bono, who was a bit of a pervert. But it was Bianchi who did the killing. It was Bianchi who got the girls. It was Bianchi who instigated it, and he basically hosted this Draco, and this Draco was using him to feed and to basically inflict a lot of damage on human girls, which is absolutely horrific. And I wrote the book about him in For the Kill, and I think we're going to go to break in a minute. We've got 9 minutes. Oh, anyway, I'll talk about it. I wrote the book in For the Kill, and which was supposed to be a book about Bianchi, but the publisher wanted, I'd spent 3 years doing so much work on Bianchi, and I'd come to a point where I didn't really understand what had gone on with him. I didn't really understand what I was seeing. I didn't understand who had done the killing, and I had, knocked on a door for 3 years and basically got nowhere. And I didn't really want to admit I had got nowhere. Bianchi had sent me some poetry, and in the poetry he was gloating over the murders, and I couldn't work out who or what part of him had written these poems that were gloating. Some of the poetry was really, really good. Gosh, I still haven't got to the bottom of it. His mother talked on tape about him having 4 personalities, and she said that the 4th one was the killer. And I don't really think, even now, I've worked out which part of him was hosting that Draco, which I'm supposing it was the part that I met when I first walked in there and felt like I was food to him. I suppose that he was looking at me with that part present at that particular time, but I don't know which part of him that was. I didn't manage to I didn't manage to get to it, and I didn't manage to work out why he had started doing that. But like Brady, he had been in institutions. He had joined a seminary as a young man, and he had been in the institution there. He'd been in hospitals a lot. He was an adopted child, so at that point he was like floating around different people. And like Brady, who was also adopted and went into an institution in Borstal. So we're just about to get a break. So I wrote up what I knew about Bianchi, which was absolutely nothing. And I thought, would it make a book? And I can see now, looking back, that it wasn't a book, but a subsidiary of Random House called Mainstream bought it, and he wanted me to give him another 100,000 words. So I had been writing a novel about my experiences with the IRA at that point, because you don't write about the real IRA in real life because they don't like it. But I thought to myself, well, I didn't have the energy to write another 100,000 words on Bianchi. And I was so worn out through working so hard to get anything from Bianchi. It was like blood from a stone that I didn't, and writing it up afterwards, that I just was completely worn out, and I didn't have any energy to write another 100,000 words. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll get the novel I'm trying to sell. I've written about the real IRA that was true, because my imagination is crap, but that you don't do on the real IRA because you don't shit on them in that way. And I will put that over the front part of the book and take out anything I put that wasn't true and leave it bare bones. So that is what I did, and it got published. And really, probably it shouldn't have been published, because it is a kind of, somebody called it Jeffrey Archer-esque essays, and I suppose it was bitty. But at the time, if you can't see something yourself and you just want answers to your own confusions, it's not, you're not in a position where you can say, oh, don't publish it, and just leave that to one side. I was trying to make sense of my own life and my own existence, so I don't, oh, sorry, I'm taking a break now. We'll be back in 3 minutes. I hope you can stay with me and I'm not rambling too much. Thanks.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host. Hi, it's Christine Joanna Hart, and this is Valkyrie's Revolution Radio. And thanks for joining me. I'm broadcasting live from London, and it's a very rainy, wet London. It's moist, damp, clammy air, and we're having floods, and we're having really violent thunderstorms.
I couldn't sleep last night. Well, I was trying to sleep, and there was loads of really bad thunder and masses of lightning, and then I was just drifting off. It was like 2 a.m. And then there was a really massive clash that I thought it was some kind of nuclear explosion. I thought finally America's got sick of us, and they've nuked us. And honestly, I just jumped out of bed and just went to the window trying to see if there was like a fire nearby or something. And my heart was clattering. I swear I nearly had a heart attack. I had to tell myself to calm down. My heart was really racing. It was horrible. It was such a loud clash. And then the lightning was just like amazing. It lit up the sky, and the rain, it was just clashing down like showers, drenching, really hard rain. And suddenly we had a month's rain in, I don't know, a night, or I don't know, something. And there was masses of floods all over London, all over the streets. There was cars wrecked, buried underwater. So that's what's going on in London at the moment. We're flooded. So yeah, pretty bad stuff. I went swimming. I just took my son swimming, and we swam outdoors, and we swam. There's no one in the pool. It was freezing in the pool, but it was raining. There was a thunderstorm, and the rain was pouring down. But it was quite awesome. I was wading about, shouting out, "Hail Odin" and "Hail the gods," and generally being very primitive and quite enjoying myself. Actually, I feel a lot better. Just managed to come home and have a hot bath and sort of get to here to speak to you guys. Sadly, I haven't got a guest tonight, but I'm talking about the Reptilians, more or less. I'm talking about how I came across them. I got to the point where I'd met Kenneth Bianchi, and I'd written the book on Kenneth Bianchi, and I was just sharing about how exhausted I was, and how I'd written a mishmash of a book. And but there we are. The Bianchi part did really get hidden in the back of it. The real IRA were very cross with me and annoyed, because the first part was about being intimate with one of their commanders, so that even though I used a fake name, they weren't very happy with me. So I upset pretty much everyone with the book, and it didn't sell very well, because they made it true crime. The cover was fantastic. It was such a beautiful cover done by a lady called Claire, who works for Random House covers, and just beautiful Silence of the Lambs type cover, amazing. And so I was honored to have that cover done. And but I was disappointed, even though Ian Brady that week had done he had been trying to get out of the insane asylum and put in a prison, and he'd slipped on a bar of soap or something bizarre and crashed his hip, and basically he wasn't fit for. I think they thought, I don't know what was going on, but I was asked to do a lot of TV and a lot of BBC radio to talk about what he was like. So I was doing quite a few interviews, and they were introducing the book because it had just come out, an author of In for the Kill, and I expected it to sell on the back of that, but it didn't sell. And I ended up earning nothing from it, absolute zero. If you can believe that would be possible, that you would work for all that time, 3 years, that you'd go out to America. And annoyingly as well, the Guardian had commissioned me. Basically, Nick Davies was trying to find out about the phone hacking at the time, and I said to him, well, I'll help you if you pay for me to go out to visit Bianchi. I've written this. And he said, well, I can get Merope Mills to see if she likes it. And Merope Mills from the Guardian magazine said, oh, let's do it as a front page for the magazine. And she commissioned me to go out there. So she paid for it. And then when I got back, she said that she didn't like what I'd written in the second part, and basically she wouldn't pay me. And then she said, oh, we can put it in the reader's experience. And I'm like, I don't even read The Guardian. And so she basically cut it to death. I mean, it was like 6,000 words. She cut it down to 100 words and stuffed it in readers' experience, leaving out that I was a journalist and leaving out that she commissioned me. So I look like Little Red Riding Hood going to see a serial killer because I think he might be a nice guy. Thanks, Merope Mills, for shitting on another woman. It's a pretty bad show, but that's still online and she won't take it off. So carry on laughing, Merope. Hope it gives you your jollies. So that was there and in for the kill after working for a year with the editors at Random House that they sent me to work with, that which was difficult. It was literally a year of going over chapter by chapter by chapter, and to not earn anything when you'd done that much work on somebody, and it had been such hard work, to not reap anything, not even a tenner, was gosh, it was shocking and upsetting and weird. And I kind of felt pretty bad because I was so tired, and of course I have a child to support, and so bizarrely I got stuck into a novel. Then at that point I thought, I know, I'll do a novel and that will sell. And so I took time and did a novel, and that couldn't find a publisher. And by then I was just exhausted and just couldn't find work and completely out of money and in a really, really bad way. And that has gone on. That was just a couple of years ago. So I kind of resent writing, but I'd studied Bianchi and I got to the point where I didn't know. I didn't really know what I'd been looking for, what had gone on, and it was sitting there published. And I was on Facebook and forgive me, I have shared this before, but I am doing my own show. I haven't got a guest, so I'm just going to talk about my own life. If you've heard it before, there's a little off button, so just click that little off button. There's no need to call me an arse on YouTube or something if I post it. I've heard this before. Haven't you got anything new to say or something like that? It's nice to be kind. I haven't got anything new to say. I'm going to share this again, this boring story. Okay. And so this woman, Joanna Hart, came to me and she said, have you heard? No, she didn't actually say, have you heard? She said, oh, you have been a part of mind programming. And obviously, as I've shared before, I thought that she was crazy. And at the time, I was being trolled by a woman who I knew from the village who trolled me. She was a professor in serial killers, was a professor in crime, and her nose was rather put out of joint that I had got a book published on serial killers when she had a PhD in serial killers and hadn't got her book published. So she basically was busy trolling me on Amazon, and it upset me quite a lot. That was where I first met my stalker, Simon, and he has stalked me and trolled me for 3 years since then, as well as a host of other people, including a cop whose life he made a misery. But so the book it incurred a lot of envy, I think, because it was such a beautiful cover and it was such a glamorous book, but it didn't make me one penny. So I had to cope with incurring envy in certain areas, and yet it not getting me absolutely anything, not even insight or finances. So it was quite a bad slap. And then to read someone saying, oh, you've been mind programmed, I thought, what? Not only am I in this shit, somebody comes along to tell me really crazy stuff, and I thought this is the giddy limit, really, with how bad life can get. And but she, during the time I knew her, I thought she was a nice girl. I didn't want to block her, so she put me in a group, Overcomers Ministry, where people who had mind programming were. And eventually I got talking to a girl in there, and we were talking about blocks, and I had so much therapy because I had felt like a Ferrari but was living the life of a Mini Cooper. And I told her that I'd pushed myself with different therapies and tried to get a good result, but yet had come up with sweet nothing. And she said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's like a block. I can see it in my mind's eye." And she says, "Is there anything on it?" You know, you think having therapists, they'd ask that question, but I think actually Louise is a therapist. So she said, "Is there anything on it?" And I said, "Yeah, Donald Duck." And she said, "That's Donald Duck mind programming." And then I googled that, and then the light went on in various rooms, and that was a long a long drawn out thing where I can't remember how I came across Miles. I think, gosh, was it? Yeah, I think there was a girl, and I won't say her name to keep her privacy, who was in that particular group who had done a little video with Miles. And so I watched that, and I thought, oh, that guy's interesting. He seems to be interested in mind control. And everyone in the group I was in said, oh, he's a really bad guy. And but he didn't seem to be bad. And I watched other people that he'd filmed, like James Casbolt and Max Beers and Sarah Adams, and he seemed to be kind to them. And then as I discovered it more and more, I thought one night, I thought, oh, well, shit, I'm going to contact him. So I did on Facebook, and he replied, and then we got talking. He said, let me interview you. And I was kind of really wary to go and sit with someone and start saying you've been mind control, because it's pretty up there with putting Baker foil on your head and saying, ooh, the CIA are hiring me to do, it's like pretty out there. I thought, do I want to do that? And, especially if he's a bad guy, I mean, what will he do with a little video of me with Baker foil on my head? And I thought, no, I didn't want to do that. But I stayed in contact with him and got to know him more and more. And he seemed like a nice guy, actually. And the more I spoke to him, the more I liked him. And the more I thought he's kind of honest. But I thought, well, maybe he's hiding a dark side somehow. And so I just got talking to him when I can't remember what it was. Yeah, one of the girls, I think it was Anna, who ran Overcomers, started to speak about Colonel Michael Aquino being the one who had set up the mind programming. So I obviously tried to track him down, and then I found Douglas Dietrich, who said he'd worked with him. And I basically contacted Douglas Dietrich and told him about the astral experience I had with Aquino, about him coming for me as a rabbit. And he invited me on the show. And then interestingly, he had said to me he was pretty sure I was a monarch asset, and that the when I said to him who controls, I couldn't get my head around who mind controls these people that have been mind controlled. So whose hand is on the steering wheel? And he, excuse me, and he said that it was people on planet Earth and off-world entities. And I remember thinking, wow, that's so space cadet. And I thought, wow, he must be a space cadet to think that. And I did think he was a nice guy and really interesting. And we kept in contact until we fell out again over meeting Michael Aquino. Everyone seems to not like him because it's rumored he's done this. I don't know if it's true. I haven't studied him enough. But Dietrich was really interesting, and he had even more stuff about this mind control. But it did sound to me at the time really, really way out. But then once you get talking to different people that have experienced it, you can kind of see that it's not something that was dreamt up by humans. It is something supernatural. It is something that was thought up by these Draco reptilians. And I know it might sound really far out, but it is thought up by them. These creatures are angelic hosts. They're dark angelic hosts, but they're pretty clever, and they're cleverer than us. And basically, us to them are like rabbits, and they can literally do what they want with us. And they don't just look at us and see a rabbit body with like fur and ears. They see our minds, and they see all the layers of our minds and the different parts of how we think in the astral and all the other bodies that we have. We have quite a few bodies, astral bodies, mental bodies. They can see all that going on, and they see as well how to control that, how to shave off bits, how to do this with them, how to do that with them, how to infuse them with their own bodies, and just how to generally just milk us for every damn thing that they can. We're basically a little farmyard they've got going, and we're the geese, or God, what are we? I don't know, but we are farm animals, and we don't know that we're in a farm. It's quite clever. We have no idea that we are these creatures, pets, basically, which makes us quite a retarded race. But there we are. It's best that we wake up now and see what's going on. So basically, when Douglas Dietrich said that it was off-world entities, he wasn't kidding. It is, but it took me a long time to get my head around that, and a long time to realize it. And then when I look back at my early life, I can see that I was searching for these creatures. I was searching for these creatures all the way along. I was looking at their handiwork, which is in these certainly men that have been monarched, such as Brady, such as Bianchi, and a few others. Certainly, the murder of John Lennon and others that they use as these shooters and whatever. I think they use the women as sex kittens, spies, honey trap spies, and they use the men as serial killers and shooters. And basically, they get them when they're young. They get a certain bloodline. Normally, it's a kind of, I think it's maybe Germanic, Aryan, mostly, and they get that kind of bloodline, and they get this kind of psychic, and they get access to them. So they're always not with their parents. They're always in foster families, and they get, I think maybe they do it deliberately to them. I think maybe they see psychic sort of races coming in, and then they kind of grab them and kind of put them to work in these programs, and they break them as children, and basically make sure they're well battered as children, and then they shave off parts of them in the astral, and they put them to work as well. And then they basically, with what's left, it's pretty easy to access them whenever they want. Basically, they use hypnosis to tell different parts, because we've all got different parts, to tell the different parts that, you're a piece of shit, your sexuality is locked up in there, it's only little, it can be triggered when we want. And basically, they have them as little receivers. It's bizarre. So some people work as their little conduits, their little receivers. I don't know what's worse, actually, to be one of their little receivers, or to be someone who's completely ignorant of them and completely ignorant of the afterlife and completely ignorant of consciousness, and just concentrates on, what's on at Waitrose this week, and my house price has gone up now, and I have a dinner party, or dresses or something. I don't know what's worse, actually, to be really dead like that and to be just complete waste of space, or to be someone who they've screwed with and sort of asleep to it. I don't know which is worse. Probably it's both. I don't know which is worse. I mean, gosh, it's really horrible. But it was just for me, waking up to that, it was just, I suppose, like Michael Harner, going back to the start of my show where I shared about the shamanistic, Michael Harner, his shamanistic journey, where he saw that these reptilians were masters of us, of our human race. And basically, I woke up to that I was got at in my Vatican-run orphanage. I was put through the Monarch programs, which means used whenever they want. And I began to see how my life had been maneuvered in various places. I'd been basically helped into Fleet Street, pushed in the direction of the IRA, brought in phone hacking, and just all these different things that are in my book. If anybody wants to read it, Order of the Valkyries, where I've used the Valkyries as a code for our kind of people that they want to make into super soldiers, which they just shave off the astral part, they get the core part, the intelligent part, and they basically remove it, they pull it out, and they just take it to work for themselves, and they leave the rest, which is not really a shell, but it's just like its power is taken out. So it's just like, lessened power, and it's then more easily directed. So they disempower that which is powerful. And that was why all my life I felt like I should be living as a Ferrari, but I was a Mini Cooper, because they'd basically gone into my bonnet, they'd opened my bonnet and they'd found the piece, whatever makes cars race fast, they'd yanked it out and they kept that. And it was only through speaking to Louise in the group that she said to try and converse with it, and I did see that part. And that part, basically, sometimes when I see her, I do see that kind of slightly reptilian look. Sometimes, just sometimes, but that's an infusion. That is what is attached to that part, because they attach a certain amount of their angelic host to give that part a boost with its psychic powers to be an astral warrior. So they kind of add a bit of their filthy genetics to it as a kind of an attachment. That's why Russ Disdar, when he does his, if anybody can see on YouTube, his things about super soldiers, he calls it chosen ones and satanic super soldiers. When he heals them, he does a deliverance on their part. And then basically when he's kind of got rid of the satanic out of the super soldier, then it can integrate and become a normal person. It obviously with someone like Bianchi, you would need to take the altar that had the Draco as a pet and dissuade that part of him that is powerful. But I mean, how do you do that with someone like that who is basically given over quite a lot to themselves to that, to say, oh, be human again? Well, basically when he was human, he was really badly battered and sort of, sexually abused by his mother. They don't want to be human again. They like the Draco world. So they're basically lost unless a lot of work is done with people like that, unless somebody gets in there and saves them. I hope nobody's looking at me to do that with Bianchi, because it's I need to get money coming in. I can't spend time doing something like that. But with people like him, they've got their fame, and so they're very arrogant, and so the fame and what they've got from what they've done acts as a shell and keeps them submerged. And they do act, they do something for society. What basically they're set up as the boogeyman. So when you're reading the Bible and you say, ooh, evil, and when people discuss evil, if we didn't have people like that, then we wouldn't have anything to say, oh, that's evil there. We wouldn't know what it was, and we'd look closer at what's going on in the world, and we would look for evil, like I have done, and because I saw that they were adopted the same as me, I looked deeper. But basically, they are, what is held up as evil. Look what they've done. They're evil. Don't look at them very hard. Just accept they're evil and accept that. And of course, they themselves lap that up and enjoy it, and they sort of ham up that, play to the crowd, and that's what they've got. But basically, it's the infusion of the Draco that has made them do what they've done, which interests other people. It's not because it's not actually human, it's something inhuman. So it does draw a lot of fascination because people don't actually know what's going on, and they look at people like that and they think, oh, they're fascinating. That's what annoys me about people that talk to me about Brady or Bianchi, and they say, oh, they're fascinating, and oh, Brady rammed his tongue down my throat when I was in there. People were like, oh, you're lying, oh, he wouldn't have done that, oh, that must, oh, someone like that, he's just a nutter in a nut house. Basically, it's not someone like that, he's just, someone who smells of urine in a nut house, a normal man. Basically, who committed those horrific murders isn't human. So that is what you're fascinated about. It's not Brady, an incontinent old pensioner. What is fascinating is what isn't human and alive, and that is the Draco. And they are fascinating. And to we can't see them, but they're there, and they're literally they're coming awake in our awake more in our consciousness now, as the two worlds they're descending and we're ascending, and there's a clash, and these end times they're going to get pretty nasty before there's a finale, and this is the bloody battle of end times right at the moment, and we're quite lucky to be here on Earth and to witness what is going to go down, but it's going to be pretty hardcore. It's going to be a massive clash. I personally am ready to fight. I am really passionately ready to fight because I've spent so long in abeyance. I've spent just a life of having my part yanked out, so I've been like a racehorse that's been in a field with other cart horses. So I'm pretty much raring to go and raring to fight with that which took from me what I should have had for my life. So I'm willing to fight to the point where I would die against these invaders. Well, they were here first, but this enemy of humanity. And I've got to a point, and it was only through Miles Johnson, and I never went and got filmed sitting there in front of him saying about this kind of thing, and I'm ready to do it now, but I'm going to go and speak at the Basis Conference. But I think you have to get to a point where you really know what has gone on before you start speaking about this kind of thing, because there's so many people that don't believe in it, that if you're going to get attacked by them, you need to feel strong. And there was someone on a forum who said about me, it's quite funny, how can she say that Colonel Michael Aquino pulled her out of her body? And this is done like, speech marks, pulled her out of her body. How will she ever be taken seriously as a mainstream journalist ever again? And I laughed. It was so funny. But you have to get to the point where you do think comments like that are funny, or you will start feeling bad. Interestingly, I did the more radio I did, and Douglas Dietrich got me this radio show, and he basically said to me, the more you share, the more you'll come into your own. And it has helped me, because the more I've shared with the people, and mostly it was people in Miles Johnson's community basis, who were very warm to me. And when I shared stuff, I thought, oh, they're going to call me nuts. They were very warm and accepting. And because of that, it really healed the like ice inside me. And these creatures, they do use that cold frequency, and I don't know what it is. It's a cold frequency, and they take you down into it, and with human love it lifts that frequency. And so the parts that are being plunged into that frequency that were cut off from me, because the warmth of the people that accepted what I've said, they have healed me. So that part has joined back into me, and to a certain degree, and it is awakening now. And also a woman called Olivia Makepeace, also from the basis community, although she's not really out there very much, she keeps herself to herself, has helped me amazingly in being aware of, they do shave the part off and they use it as an astral warrior, telling me that I own that part. And at first I thought, well, I can't use it. And I really needed someone else to give me orders. And basically, I was used by them as a penetration person, and I was good at penetrating people and literally finding out what was going on. And I have those skills, but I don't use those skills for myself. And it was quite interesting when she was telling me, if you want to know something, just look in the astral. And I thought, oh, I can't do that. And she said, well, no, you've been doing it for them. And so I started trying to do it little by little, even though I thought, no, I can't do that. I said, no, you can. So I started doing it, and it was quite odd. And then I realized sometimes I'm an empath and I feel energy, and I can feel other people's energy and read their energy and find out what's going on with them through their energy, just hearing them for a few minutes. And so I can see what's going on with them. If I touch them, I can psychometrize as well. If I touch somebody's property, I can know where they've been, and I can know who they are, and read that. So I'm an energy reader. And sometimes when I would be sitting there watching TV, I would just start really feeling bad. And now, through Olivia, if I am sitting there feeling bad, I will ask myself, is it something to do with what I'm thinking, or is it someone coming for me in the astral? And sometimes, literally, you can have people who are more awake than you are astrally, who can be coming for you. They can literally be sitting there thinking hate thoughts about you, and that can reach you, and you'll just start feeling bad or shitty, and it's someone else. And through what Olivia said, if I start feeling that, I do a sweep and I pick up whoever it is, and then I attack them back. And I know we say don't attack back, but I'm afraid I'm not really that evolved at this point. And I don't really go for a lot of the love and light that a lot of people give out. Oh, love and light, love and light. These are really hard times, and I will kick ass if I want to. And if I am watching TV and start feeling shitty and then do a scan and it's some creep that, I don't know, some troll or something, or someone who's got some petty problem with me, then I will completely attack them and destroy them and just wipe them out. And it's odd. It's just in the astral, and the more stronger your inner mind gets through seeing it, the realer it gets, and the more you can just act really quickly. And the more people say stuff like, "Oh, you need to create a bubble around yourself." I don't bother with a bubble. I just armor up with armor with weapons on it, and I just attack. I just wipe them out. And once you get to that level, it's quite interesting, and it does double back with shamanism. It is shamanism. And I think maybe you should think of a different name for it, because now when people think shamanism, they're, oh yeah, oh, that's someone shaking a rattle and drumming, or and so their mind closes down. But it's not actually; it's astral travel, just like the Theosophists wrote about, and we all should be doing it. It doesn't. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me and say, "Oh, it's witchcraft. Oh, you shouldn't." But our consciousness is rising, and we're going to get to a certain point that if you don't do it, if you don't get conscious, that part of you conscious, they're going to sit there, you're going to feel like shit. Like me, I was in that position where I'd be sitting watching TV and feeling shit, because literally I was under attack by God knows who had a problem with me, or whatever entities felt like giving me a workover. And I would just sit there sort of like almost sitting in a rainstorm, because I'm an empath. I can feel it, but I wouldn't fight back. And then through listening to Olivia, I don't do that anymore. If I'm feeling shitty, I'll think, "What? Who's homing in on me?" And I'll do a scan, and I'll think, "Oh, it's them. Is it really? You're homing in on me?" And I will absolutely obliterate them and threaten them and say, "You home in on me. You don't home in on me." And they will go, and I will be feeling great again. And everybody has to do this. Everybody has to start doing this. And she also said about. My brother is selling our mother's house, and it's quite funny. I thought she would leave it all to him, because he nursed her, even though, okay, he did leave her, which is quite horrid, really. I didn't know about it. He did leave her for weekends and go off, which is horrible. I could have stayed there and looked after her, but he didn't want me to. He didn't want me to get in the house because he was there. Basically, I assumed that he would leave it to her. She would have left the house to him, but she left it to the Catholic Church, the orphanage, the Daughters of St. Paul, the Coalition Fathers, and all the Catholic organisations that were around me in my childhood and around her parents, and that they all belonged to. So the money was left to them, and my brother and I got 25 grand each. We haven't got it yet when the house is sold. He's surprised, and my brother was like destroyed. And so, but for us to get what me and my brother, this 25 grand that we've been given each, he has to sell the house. And of course, he's been hanging on there for a year because he's living rent free, and he wouldn't move. And it seemed to me that there was an energetic lockdown, and I couldn't see the future, and I couldn't see that happening. I couldn't envisage the house selling, and it made me feel very frustrated because I needed that money because of the situation I'm in after putting my energy and time into the books, and any savings I had just was gone into the books, and it had gone, and I was left in poverty. And so I was stuck in this position, and I couldn't envisage him leaving the house, and I was so frustrated, so upset. And he said, "No, I'm selling it," and I knew he wasn't. And there were buyers coming, and the sale has fallen through, and it was making me feel horrible. And I was so frustrated, and Olivia said, "Go into the Astral and shout out what is going on with the house." And I thought, "Oh, that's a good idea." So that night, I normally how I get there, sometimes I can do it consciously, not often. I have to go, I go into a light sleep, and then I find myself there, and I know I'm there because I have the consciousness of laying on the bed, and I can go back into my body. Oh, I'm laying on the bed and I'm there. So I've got the dual consciousness. And that time I had the dual consciousness, and a figure appeared in front of me, and he said that it was on lockdown, and he said it's not going to be sold, and your brother's not going to move out of there. He was being influenced to stay, that the house would never be sold. And I said, well, why not? And he said that because I had gone to the orphanage, the Jesuit orphanage, where me and my brother were taken from, and where we had to go back for parties every month. And I had gone to them and said, "You've been left all this money. I believe it's our money, and I'm going to fight you for it." I said it in a polite way, but I hinted that I'm a book writer and I'm a journalist, and that if they did take the money when I'm in poverty, that I would plaster them all over a book. If I couldn't get them in a newspaper, I would put them in a book. And basically, these threats had gone out. They'd gone out to the Crusades Orphanage, which is now the Catholic Children's Society. They'd gone out to, I'd actually gone to see the Claretian Fathers. I had made the same threats. And I'd gone to the Daughters of St. Paul, the nuns. I'd made the same threats there. And the other, the whole fucking thing, excuse me, I swear, sorry, I have to bleep that out. I'd gone around all of them and made the threats, and I was determined that after the house was sold, I wouldn't put up with just what I had got. I would fight, and my brother was on side with this as well. And I said, "Don't worry, I'll make sure we get more than we've been given, because I've got a press pass here. I've got my credentials as a journalist. I've got contacts in Fleet Street. I'll make it a story because I'm a single mother, my son, and we haven't got any assets. And how can the Roman Catholic Church, that is so rich, suck it up? And it's not going to happen. Not going to happen, especially not where, our orphanage, which has, played a part in our lives. Really, they didn't let us go. I mean, we're still theirs, which is, I don't think that's a proper way to behave, but they behaved like that throughout our lives and had an influence in it. And so I was going to sort this out, and I'd made these visits to these people, and they said, "Well, the house has to be sold, and then you have to approach us." And basically, I'd got a yes. I'd been so thrusting, and I'm quite good at that kind of thing, that I had more or less got a yes. Okay, we'll take it into consideration. If they don't give it all, we would at least get some of it. And so I was like quite happy, and I said to my brother, "Don't worry, we will get more than we've been given." And I will see to that. And basically, this figure in the astral, he said to me, because I had done that, and because I was depriving them of what was their money, that it was on lockdown, and it would be on lockdown, and I wouldn't even get what I was left until I acquiesced to giving the cult money back to the cult, because it was cult money, it was a cult house. And basically, he said to me that my adoptive parents had been given the house by the grandparents who were part of the cult, and their contract had been to abuse me, and their payment for abusing me was the house. And it was a cult house, and there was no way that I was going to rob them of what was their money. And so I made a promise to him that I would not take the money. I would not attempt to take the money. And he said, "Consider it lifted," and the house will sell. And then he said, "If you go back on your promise, then there would be grave consequences." He made various threats to me. And oddly, the next day, I felt I just felt the energy completely changed. I could literally see the house being sold. The energy that had been doing my head in, because I was feeling it, of the lockdown, had lifted, and I could just, all the frustration go. I felt so much happier, and I was so relieved. And I rang my brother, and he started talking excitedly about, "Oh, got to sell a house, that'd be great," and his energy had shifted. And I became I'd never done anything like that before, journeyed and got an answer and got an answer from the other world and brought it back to this world and altered something here in it, which is really what shamans do, and they do it for other people. They see what energies in the higher world are influencing the lower world, and they talk to entities there and heal what's going on, all that kind of stuff, which is what shamans do. And I'd never done that before, and I wouldn't have done it if it hadn't been for Olivia Makepeace telling me to do it, which I am beyond grateful, because once I had done that, my connection with the astral became more intense, and my consciousness rose, and I began the veil that had been cutting me off from the astral was dropped. I then looked around me and saw this world a lot clearer. I mean, I used to be very jealous of my neighbor, Janie, and I thought how she'd been so successful because she'd got a big house and she didn't have any money problems. And I was the arse who lived in a rented shack where she was in a £3 million villa. And I felt really bad whenever I saw her walk past her. I had to walk past her every bloody day. But it completely healed it because I was suddenly aware of how the astral is controlling us, and how if even though it took me, because I became fascinated by the entity that I'd met, who was I don't think that it was human, even though it was in human form. It was basically a controller of a certain area. And it explained to me how the astral was, divided up into cults, like different cults. I don't know if that means religions. It's not means cults in the sense of the word, but like cabals, like, Jews, Catholics, or maybe they're together. I don't know. But the astral is divided up into this plus, and it's controlled. So this level is controlled. So if you get somebody like my neighbor who's got loads of money, they're part of the cult in the astral, even though they might not know it, and they get looked after. So that is probably why Christ said that it's harder for a richer man to fit through the eye of a needle to get to the kingdom of heaven, because if you are rich, it means that the astral cult cabals are looking after you. Now, if they're looking after you and you're doing little deals with them, it's not like deals where you say, "Oh, I'll sell my soul to the devil." You just kind of buy into them and you become part of them and you get power from them. And if you're doing that, then you can't ascend to the heavens, because you're owned, you're part of it. And I saw from meeting that entity how you do get owned by, because you get protected by them and you become part of them, and they protect their stuff and they protect their people, and they see that their people go on successful pathways. So now when I look at very moneyed people, I think, who are you with? Sort of what, whether it's Protestants or whatever, you can see how they're given it basically, and it's just the opposite of what Christ wanted. And so it freed me up with feeling bad because, I'm poor, but then I thought it doesn't matter, because I see more clearly what's going on. It really doesn't matter. And if you do want money and success, really, you just have to sell out. I mean, you sell into one of these cabals. It's pretty easy and pretty dirty and pretty horrid. And this, I did become fascinated by the entity that I encountered. And even though I have encountered different entities on the astral before, that I have gone back and met again and again. And but this particular one, he did seem powerful, and I did try and communicate with him again on the astral, and he said, "You have no business with me." So he didn't want to communicate with me, and I did then bargain and say, "I have done something. I've done something for you. I want information." And he then showed me the grid and showed me the astral grid and how it works. And basically, as well as being divided up. And these, like the entity that I met, he is one of the workers for the Draco, literally, or maybe he's Draco himself. When I looked into his eyes, it did seem like liquid fire. So he wasn't human. And basically, this grid that they've got is an energy grid, and it's all over the earth. It monitors each and every one of us. It's an amazing thing. And what happens if there's anybody sort of rising or getting very spiritually intense? It sort of like shows a little blip on the radar, and they've got a little grid that could just zap that person back down. And he explained to me that they, when somebody rises up to or gets any spiritual awareness, they could just zap them back down, and they use their karma. That's all on this grid, and it's just, it's not hard to do. It's just all done automatically on this little grid. It's all just controlled automatically. Nobody is putting in any effort. It's already set up. And basically they can use someone's karma against them, and they can use their enemies, and they use the streamlined what we know as targeting, where they sort of it's all so intricate. Nobody has to put in any effort. It's just all controlled remotely. So he showed me that, and that was quite interesting. And that, yeah, it was interesting. I think when you do awaken, you do these these creatures that they can do what they want. They do start to have an interest in you, and I mean, I've encountered them, and when I do encounter some of them, they're so powerful that I know not to screw with them, and I just look down and avert my eyes, because these are so much more powerful than we are. But they're not concerned with us personally. They're concerned with the power battle that's going on at the moment between the very powerful Christ forces and their forces, and they know that really their time is coming to an end, and they're at a particularly dicey point. So it's it's I think all of us now have to make sure that our consciousness can be as cleared and as active as possible. I think we have to learn about different levels and not wait till we die to become aware, but widen our consciousness, that it can become just as Christ conscious. There's a very good book by Buck called Cosmic Consciousness, and it describes all the people that had Christ consciousness. And if we can widen our minds to all become shaman and practice journeying and practice becoming aware of these different worlds, then we can, we can do what we can to, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be some kind of attack on the grid, and that the good forces are going to try and dismantle, in some kind of coup, dismantle the grid, and we're going to try and get freed up. And this is going to happen. And some of the darker forces, the fallen angelic, are going to turn, and where they're going to try and get back, if they can, to God somehow. So I think that we don't really have to do that much. We just have to give ourselves up to the Christ consciousness and meditate and constantly get in touch with that magic flow, because basically our human minds aren't going to help us in this battle against these supernatural beings, because they have really got everything sewed up. They really have. And we are pretty trapped. So what we do need to do is to get in conscious contact with what is above that, the Christ consciousness, and let it come down into us, so it can literally use magic to help us to know what to do in what's going on at the moment. But these are really exciting times where things aren't going to go on how they have been going on, with this grid structure in place and us all trapped in this energy trap like little flies caught in a giant spider's web. So these are pretty exciting times, and I'm profoundly grateful for the people that have helped me. Miles Johnson is amazing, that he's brought lots of people together that have been through this, and we're all helping each other. And I'm very grateful for the love energy that I've got, which has healed me, and all this acceptance that has really helped me, and literally the help as well that you get from other people that are switched on, and it's amazing. And that, we all we've been kept in the dark, and they've been so crafty and clever with everything, and everything's been done in the dark, and it is clever what they've done, but then they are supernatural, and they are intradimensional and multidimensional. And of course, if someone is multidimensional and we're asleep in one tiny dimension, they are going to have the upper hand. They are going to have the edge. So I don't see, we shouldn't judge ourselves too much. Anyway, I'm coming to an end. You can read my book, which is my life story, which I've been bleating on about, Order of the Valkyries, which is on Amazon. And you can reach me, Christine Joanna Hart, on Facebook. And I think I'm bowing out. It's been the end of the show. And thank you for staying with me. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for listening. And have a really good evening.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.